Hello everyone, it's Cassie and I am back with another Trinity Stamps video. Today we are going to be making a cute little fishing scene. We're going to focus on using our little Cozy Bear boater stamps and dies. I just love the Cozy Bear line. I love how you can mix and match him, but he's adorable. We're also going to be bringing in the Layered Peninsula stencil. I've used this one already a few times. And then we have our older Simply Sentimental Happy, along with the matching dies. I don't use those today, but I love those Simply Sentimental stamps. And then of course we have our Modern Embossed A7 because I am going to be making a 5x7 card. To save a little time, I went ahead and stamped out all of my images onto some Express It cardstock using some Blackout ink because, as you can see, I am using some alcohol markers. And for my grays, it's funny, I always start with my darker color and then bring in my lighter color, but typically how I color is lightest to darkest. So I'm showing you just, adding a little bit of color. I really wanted this little guy to be a polar bear. I wanted this to be sort of a winter scene, even though it's like 100 degrees outside. In my mind, I am thinking of cooler temps. So I chose to make him a little polar bear. And I'm trying to do my best to put all the colors up on the screen, but at some point I get a little into the coloring and not focused on where my caps are, and so most of them are off the screen. But this is the BG96. We're going to use that for his shirt and for his hat, and then we'll bring in some BG99. See, it's up off the screen, but that's BG99. And I'm just putting a little bit of shadowing and shading where I think it will look good. Blend that out with our BG96, and then I'll come back in with that BG99 just to make those edges a little bit more defined. And as that alcohol ink kind of dries, it blends out a little on its own. Not a lot, but a little bit. And then for his life jacket, we've got YR16, and then I'm going to bring in some YR07. You'd think that if you were looking at those Copics, you'd think that the YR07 would be lighter, but that's not how that works. Each of those numbers means something, so it isn't always numerical order, which is why I pronounce them with each letter and number rather than, like, say, BG16 or BG99 or whatever. All right, now we're bringing in some reds for our fishing box. Sorry, I'm doing that upside down. I realize I should probably flip it around, and then I'll color his mouth, and he's pretty much done. So we'll soften those edges on our fishing box, our tackle box, and then I have some other images that I have stamped out. We've got our little bobber, and we have our life preserver, doing the typical colors, and then bringing in darker shades, and we'll blend that out a little bit more. Off camera, I do add a little bit of gray to the white areas just to add some depth. And yeah, so then we'll bring in a gold, which is the Y28 for his buckles and his tackle box. For our oars, our fishing pole, and our boat, we use the same colors. We have E55 and E35. So I'll just add a little bit of shadowing there. In my mind, I had an idea of where these oars were going to be placed, but I end up changing that when we get making the card, when the card's actually coming together. But I do love having extra pieces because that way I can, if I have anything extra, I can put those on the inside of the card and create a little scene in there too sometimes. Then we'll blend that out just a tiny bit. And I did color his little canned beverage off camera. Now we'll bring in all of the matching dies, and we'll tack that down with a little bit of mint tape and run that through our die cutting machine. And then we'll take a piece of 5x7 Express It cardstock, so it's still alcohol marker friendly. And I want to color this little fish, but he's going to be behind the water. And I'll show you how easy that is to do that. So we'll just stamp him down kind of where I want him. Then I'm going to color him up with some of the colors that I've already used, BG96 and BG99, and then I will bring in a pink. So because Copics are a transparent medium, you can layer them on top of each other and they will show through, or you can mix colors, which is nice, but it is a transparent medium. And to make it look like this fish is underwater, I'm going to be using another transparent medium. We're going to be using dye inks. So there's our little fish. He's adorable. And then I'd forgotten the bear's ears, so I bring in some colors to do that and blend that out with some R20. Now he's ready to go. I need to bring in that stencil. That is the Layered Peninsula stencil, and I have my Tonic platform. I'm just going to tack all of this down using those magnets. And if I had been thinking, I would have used pixie spray. So this does get a little bit blurred, but I don't mind it. I kind of think that's how it would look with water anyway. But if you would like something a little bit more crisp, I highly recommend using some pixie spray on the back of your stencil. But I'm using some speckled egg and just blending that. It's easiest when you're doing these waves because they're very thin to kind of just go back and forth and not do a circular motion. So that's what I'm trying to do here. And I do get some buildup of ink on some of those edges, but I really don't mind because, you know, the water itself isn't going to be perfect. And then I'm going to bring in some evergreen bough, and I'm going to blend that all over that background. And it'll sort of look like our fish is underwater once you put all those colors. Because these are dye inks, they are transparent as well. And so if I had used Distress Oxide inks or a pigment ink, he would be covered up, and we didn't want that. So we're just kind of going over the top of him, and it does look a little bit splotchy, but I kind of don't mind. I'm going to go over the top of it again, trying to line up our waves, and I'll use that evergreen bough on that. It does not bother me that it isn't perfect. And I like it. All right, so now for the little like iceberg area, I'm going to bring in some iced spruce. It is technically a green, but it looks kind of like a gray green, and I think it goes so well with this background. And as you can see, I'm not blending the best. I'm really struggling, honestly, with that part today. I'm pushing down way too hard, and I'm kind of being impatient. So to avoid getting those marks, start on your stencil and bring your blender in. I just keep trying to work it around that area, and it ends up being good enough for me. So. And then I'm going to bring in some weathered wood for our upper portion. And again, getting a little too heavy-handed. In some areas, I end up with some blend marks. You can cover that, though, with splatter. You can cover that with some well-placed embellishments. Don't just throw your piece away. I highly recommend just working with what you have sometimes. Sometimes it's completely unsalvageable, but a lot of the time it is salvageable. So don't get discouraged. Just keep playing. Now we need to bring in that modern embossed A7. I used the second largest one, and I actually did use the largest one on some craft cardstock. We're going to layer those up. But let's start building our scene. So we've got our little bear. He's going in the boat. I thought about putting the oars here, but I'm going to save those for the inside of the card. I do take the life preserver, though, and I am going to tack that down to the front of our boat. I just like adding extra color and things. And then we have our fishing pole along with our bobber. And we'll put the little can in his hand like he's drinking a beverage, but it basically gets covered by the fishing pole. So it's there, but you don't see it that well. Oh well. I still love it. I think it's so fun. And like I said, since this is a part of the Cozy Bear line, you could probably bring in one of the little tiny bears and he could go fishing. Like he's fishing with Grandpa or something. Wouldn't that be fun? Or Dad. So we've got that down. Now we can put down our bobber and our line in front of our fish, who looks like he is ready to attack it. And then we've got our fishing pole. And then I need to come up with a sentiment. So I have pulled out the one that says "No trout about it, ... I just think that's so cute and clever. Love a good pun. And then we'll use the matching die to die cut that out. And I didn't want that just floating up on the top. So I'm going to bring in a dark green cardstock that will kind of match our little bear's outfit. And that's a little bigger than our sentiment, and that'll just go up top. So it'll kind of frame up our sentiment so the sentiment doesn't just get lost up there. I'm going to use my glass mat, a little bit of liquid glue to adhere this down. And then we can tack down our sentiment on top of that. And then we can flip that over and trim off that excess piece of green cardstock that's hanging off the edge. And then we can attach this down to our craft base or our craft panel. And I love how there is embossing on both that white piece of cardstock and our craft piece of cardstock because of the modern embossed A7 dies. Now for the inside of our card, this is a 5x7 again, so I'm going to stamp out Happy from our Simply Sentimental Happy set, and I use some pine needles, and that's Distress Oxide ink, and then I'll use that Blackout ink for our sentiment that says, "You make my heart happy." So reading all that sentiment together, no trout about it, you make my heart happy. And then I have our tackle box along with our 2 oars. So we're going to just glue those to the inside. I love it. I think it's just so fun to add the little elements like that. We'll just stick those down in there. And then we can attach our card panel to our card base using that same liquid glue. But of course, I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to bring in some fortune teller embellishments. These are little flat-backed baubles. They're so pretty, and I think they could go well on any card. And I was not sure what I wanted to put on here, but when I pulled those out, I was like, these go on anything. So I'm just going to use my pickup stick, liquid glue, and then just put down all of those little baubles on there. I love it so much. I think this is such a fun little card. There you have it. And that's going to finish off our 5x7 fishing scene. I hope you like it as much as I do. If you did like this video, please hit that like button and definitely consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. And big thanks for the support that you guys give me. I love your comments. I read them all, and I think you guys are amazing. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.